Hi there, I'm Nick Rosso, and welcome to Inside the Leadership Cryptex podcast, the show where I talk to business leaders and industry experts working in or in association with the property, real estate and building industries. Now, to give you a little insight into what a Cryptex is, perhaps you've heard of the book by Dan Brown called The Da Vinci Code. Well, this is where the Cryptex made its debut, as a portable vault used to hide secret messages. Therefore, Inside the Leadership Cryptex is an apt title for my podcast. Please join me for a fun, straight-talking and authentic chat with some super interesting people where I unlock the secrets to their career success, their ups and downs, their daily habits, and the path that led them to where they are today. How do they balance their work, family relationships, physical and mental well-being, and both personal and financial growth? I also uncover their goals for the future, along with some industry commentary and insights. I really do hope you're able to take something useful away from the conversations. And now, on with the show. I'm your host, Nick Rosso, and today I am privileged to have Samantha McLean, who is an industry thought leader and publisher within the media industry, focusing specifically on the real estate industry. Samantha has spent most of her career in the corporate world before building a startup publisher and education company called Elite Agent, of which Samantha is the managing editor of Elite Agent magazine. She established this around 2013 and 14. Now, Elite Agent magazine is a real estate industry-only magazine, which represents the who's who in the real estate industry, plus news, education, and resources from around Australia. To add to this, Samantha is also a podcast host of shows such as the Elevate podcast and the Daily Brief, just to mention a couple. Samantha's company also provides industry resources and training through her Elite Agent Academy, different research and events like Transform and the annual Elite Retreat, which will be happening again this year. To top it all off, Samantha has achieved a number of awards, including the Mumbrella Publisher Editor of the Year 2015, 2018 and 2020. Samantha also shares with me how it all started and also talks about the amazing people working around her who've played an integral role in helping to make Elite Agent magazine a very special part of the Australian real estate industry. We also have a chat around technology, AI, and obviously the hottest topic, ChatGPT, and how she sees this evolving the industry and how the real estate industry was affected during COVID and now post-COVID, how the industry is evolving and adapting as a result. Now, we did have a little bit of weather interference on the day here in WA. However, it was a super fun episode, really insightful conversation, and I really do hope you enjoy it.
Hi, Samantha. Welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Oh, fantastic. So, of course, you are the managing editor of Elite Agent magazine. It started around 2013, but before we get into the nitty-gritty, I just want to say that it was one of those magazines that I could not wait to get my hands on, because obviously when I in my real estate offices, I subscribed and it came over, and before it took prime real estate in my reception, I took it home and read it.
Thank you.
The offers.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're most welcome. Look, it was such good content, so professional, glossy, who's who of real estate. But, it's not only that, it's news, it's industry events, and now it's coaching. I mean, it's really evolved to what it was a paperback to now being your most sought after publisher and real estate industry sort of thought leader in Australia. I mean, how do you manage your time?
How do I manage my time? That is a very big question. So it's tricky because most business owners, you never completely switch off. But I think you have to, and I mean, look, managing it, we could talk for a whole 40 minutes on managing time. But basically, I do put in the hard yards. Like I do get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and sometimes don't finish till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And, I think the best time management tip I could possibly give anyone out there is to manage your energy, not time. Like I think in the real estate industry, we're always pumped with that, you've got to get up early. Now I'm a morning person, so my biorhythms suit being up early. But, I think there's a lot of thinking now that says, well, night owls, you're okay too. But the key thing is that you do your most dollar productive stuff when your energy's high.
Yeah, yeah, that's great advice. Now, you've always been involved in the corporate world, and your career goes, 20 years plus back, always marketing, sales related, coaching, and what have you. Where was the light bulb moment where you decided that I think we'll just switch over to real estate and do a magazine, and only industry related too? Now, let's make that clear. This isn't really for the public, this magazine. It's for the industry. So, I mean, straight away, just talking about it, you can tell there's a niche, but I mean, how did that happen?
It's a long story, and it wasn't just one light bulb moment. It was, I had a professional services career, and not a bad one. I was what you call a bid manager. It's how I met my husband, actually, working on one of his bids. So basically, in construction or in, corporate sales, sometimes when the deal's worth a lot of money, you have to get someone in to organize all the players around you. And I wasn't too bad at that, but, like a series of,
Is that like a tender? Is that like a tender
yeah,
process?
like a tendering process. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So sort of like, bid manager, sales coach, proposal coach, they get given different titles, in different companies. And so I was one of those, which basically meant that, like I was responsible for putting the final document in front of the customer, which hopefully had a compelling value proposition, compelling price, had answered all the questions, and, and everyone was happy to implement it internally. So how did I go from that to having a real estate magazine? It was more of a personal thing than a professional thing because, I had not the smoothest journey in my life, personally, relationship wise, that sort of thing. And there came a time in my life around that 2011-12 period where I actually needed a second job. And, and I ended up writing some stuff for the real estate magazine at that point because I think sales are sales, leadership is leadership. They translate, across industries and things like that. I mean, real estate's a bit harder for a few reasons, which we can talk about, but they do translate. And so, I found writing for this magazine was good fun. I actually ended up liking it more than my real job. And then unfortunately, another series of unfortunate events was that, that magazine didn't survive, but everyone kind of thought that the magazine was me because it got to a point where everyone thought that I was running the show, but I wasn't. And so it was like, well, why don't you just have your own magazine? And it was a bit more complicated than that too, because I was a single mother and had rent to pay and had another job, like another full-time job on the side. So Elite Agent was my side hustle until it sort of wasn't.
Yeah. So when did that change to become not the side hustle?
Probably sometime in 2016. So,
Gee, that's fantastic. That's great growth, isn't it? And that's about 3 years.
yeah. So we published our first edition of The Brief on the 24th of October, 2013. So that's 10 years this year for The Brief. The first edition of the magazine was the 15th of September, 2014. Yeah. And don't ask me when the first podcast was because I can't tell you. I think it was sometime in 2017.
Yeah. Wow. And so who's in your team now? I mean, it looks massive, obviously, and you'll have some, people that work closely with you. So what makes part of the Elite Agent group?
It's actually not that massive at the moment. So there's me. And basically I think now, I sort of host a podcast and I'm probably the face of the business, I guess. We do some speaking events and training and things like that, which, I've really enjoyed. Kylie Dolhunty is the magazine editor. And, I mean, people still come to me for stuff, but really it's her. And she's fantastic at what she does. And, she's recently taken on some more digital editor type responsibilities. And then there's Mark, of course, it's my husband. So I dragged him out of his safe corporate job into this as well. He kind of handles our advertising and our commercial partnerships and things like that, our PR stuff. So we do a lot of PR done for you content for people these days because, we just found it easier to, instead of someone sending us a press release, which was usually not the best, we just found that it was easier to kind of go, all right, well, let's write something that's really going to resonate with the audience instead. And then we work with a bunch of talented freelancers. So, our video editor is actually based in Serbia, in Belgrade. And there's, some writers, one of which is based in WA, another based in Queensland. So we work with some freelancers around the place. The magazine designer lives on the Central Coast. So we were sort of a virtual business long before COVID.
Yeah. No, that's right. And now with leadership, now obviously it's so broad, and obviously real estate is one of those areas where it's even more different as well. But you're in a dual leadership role, effectively. So you're running a lead agent magazine. You've got the team around you, as you just mentioned. But you're also a considered thought leader. I mean, certainly for me, and I think everyone in the industry would be the same, in the real estate space. And not only are you a leader in your business and publishing and marketing and all of that space, but you're also in another industry altogether. How do you balance that sort of leadership styles, I guess?
Thank you, firstly, for saying that. It's very kind of you. I often,
Well,
I just kind of do my job, I think. But balancing across different things is actually really hard. And, we do a series on the Elevate podcast, which called the Leadership Diaries, where I kind of grill leaders on, ask them the same set of questions across a broad range of things to try and figure out, what their secrets are and how to help aspiring leaders and things like that. And I think, there's no one size fits all. But what I do know is that the trend, particularly with young people and things like that, if you really want to engage them, then they need to connect with you as a person first, rather than, it being like, I remember when I was talking to someone at an event I was at last week. And, culture back then was getting pissed at the pub on a Friday night and gossiping about it on Monday. That was culture. That was the 90s, though. These days, it's more about, and the last person we recruited, a lot of them asked me, what do you stand for? What means something to you beyond obviously making $1? And, there's lots of things we've stood for over the years that have changed and things like that, but you've really got to stand for something. So for me, being in the real estate industry, then, and, earning a living out of an industry, you better leave it in a better place than when you came in. And to me, that is, the ethos that we've had over the years of no bad news. So every time, every time the real estate industry gets a caning from the mainstream media, it kind of breaks my heart for a lot of the close people around a lead agent like yourself, for years, the people that really, just work hard, care and do it tough. So that's been one of our sort of mantras for years, is do no harm. Because I believe that, when somebody in the industry reports on someone going to jail for taking money out of the trust fund, it gives it oxygen, and then that creates perception of the real estate industry, which is true for that person that did the wrong thing, but not true for, the majority of people. So yeah, from a leadership perspective, I think, people want to connect with you, first of all, as a person, and be able to, understand where you're coming from and what your journey is. And that requires being transparent and authentic. And that's not easy for old ducks like me sometimes, because we're always taught to, sort of grin and bear it. So that's a skill that, I'm always working on. And the other thing is, you need to stand for something in the future. I think you need to be aware of the impact that you're making and have an impact beyond, the stated purpose of your business, which might be for or not for profit. But
I couldn't agree more. And one thing I think that you probably won't say, because you are this, is being humble and right, even just when you and I caught up and chatted about this, you just shared with me just over the phone, some great ideas to help me, with this little podcast. And I was, you have no idea how grateful I was for that. And also taken the fact that you would share that. And I don't mean you express these as someone like you, because unfortunately, what I see, and I see it in a lot of different industries, that people in leadership positions don't actually like sharing. And to me, I think if you are a leader, if you are successful, that is part of the gig, and you openly have done that. I just, why don't people do that more?
Yeah, I think it's comes from a place of fear, that that somebody will take that information and use it against you. And I mean, look, it happens too. Like I believe a rising tide lifts all boats, and and over the years I've helped as many people as I possibly can. Some people have used it against me. Some people deliberately watch what we do and rips off. Like
Yeah,
it
it's
happens.
meant to be a form of flattery, but there's a line.
Well, but that's the thing. But like most people, are just really having a go, and if you can help someone along the way, then hopefully it's good karma on the way back.
Yeah, hopefully. And I love what you said, what you stand for, and, make the place better, the industry better. And it's quite interesting. Um, I did a guest speaker this week actually at one of the training, West Coast Property Training in Perth, which I love. They're fantastic. I actually did my diploma there many years ago. And, the question is 20 years plus in real estate, why the change? And look, I was at my age, I was 49, and this was something I actually thought I'd love to do. Skill sets are similar. And as it has turned out, as it's evolving, I'm finding I'm giving back more to the real estate industry by being in recruiting for it than I ever was when I was in it. It's like you have blinkers on when you're doing it. Certainly we help a great deal of people buy and sell homes, which is fantastic. But the satisfaction out of helping someone and making the industry better, by perhaps finding them something they didn't think about. I know it might be small, but that small thing is what I enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I don't think any of us like what really I love is someone who did transform 10 years ago, or 6 years ago, coming up to me and going, oh, that really, they won't say anything at the time, but then they'll go, oh yeah, that really changed the way I looked at things. And it's those little things that I think make all of us happy, like because you know, give me someone who loves the grind of 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. until someone actually says, "Oh yeah, that really helped me." Um,
Mm.
that's what makes a difference, and that's why you get up. Really,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's those small little moments that make it all worthwhile, isn't it?
mm, absolutely.
Yeah. So with in particular your leadership podcast that you've been doing as well, and speaking to, you've interviewed and had articles on so many great talented agents around the country about leadership and their styles and what have you. Have you found you've learnt from that? And what would be some of those things, the takeaways that in your own process of having interviews and writing articles that you've been able to attribute to your own leadership style?
Yeah, a lot actually. In fact, I would recommend that anyone who wanted to be a better leader should start a podcast on leadership and then invite every single leader that they've ever been in awe of on the podcast and then ask them for their advice. Like I think that's probably the best way to get free advice ever.
Mhm.
There's been I mean, the thing is though, like I think you need different advice, different times, in your journey, whatever that happens to be. And, one day it might be someone says something interesting about hiring people, or then someone says something interesting about culture, or somebody says, and depending on what you're going through, like I was interviewing Brock Fisher the other day and I had somebody resign on me. And
Yeah.
I think I made a lot of that podcast about unpacking my own feelings. And if anyone goes and listens to it now, they'll probably get that. But, like I definitely do think that the idea of creating content around something that you're very interested in is a really good thing. And I often sort of think, particularly with people that come in and work for us, they'd all make really great real estate agents if they ever decided to go and get their licenses, if they could, master that skill of picking up the phone.
Yeah, no matter what industry, it doesn't change, does it? You can't be scared of the phone.
That's it. You've got to be able to talk to people.
Yeah. Now, on that, talk to me about, you're in the box seat with technology and, branding and things like that. I noticed you were speaking about something relating to ChatGPT a little while ago for real estate, which I have forget that. I'm getting braver. But where do you think, talking about the phone, I mean, that's you and I are used to that, and I still do it now, pick up the phone, whatever. Do you see that change in new people coming into the industry? And is the phone still going to be the thing, or are there other technologies and things that are going to change the way that industry does business?
Ooh, that's a big question too. So I think,
Yeah.
in the 10 years I've been in a lead agent for sure, and even before that, you hear, we've gone from disruption and disintermediation from the portals, which seems to have settled down now. We've heard about Ubers of real estate. We've heard about Cryptex. We've heard about, all sorts of other things. And, there's always this next big thing that's coming and it's going to disrupt real estate. I mean, last year when we did Zoomathon, it was Web3 and NFTs and stuff like that. That was going to disrupt, like Snoop Dogg buying and selling real estate in the metaverse. I mean, like sign me up. I'm like, I'm going to put my virtual self next to Snoop Dogg. Okay, so ChatGPT I think is an interesting thing. The age of AI is an interesting thing. So, and it will change real estate, whether we like it or not. So, if you look at the industrial revolutions over time, the 1700s was coal and steam back, and that changed the world with trains and things like that. And then you had electricity in the 1900s. You had digital, digital and the internet in sort of the late 80s. I believe the internet's here to stay. It's not a fad anymore. It's like I believe that there's a future in it. Yeah, that's right. And then last year in November, I think that was the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution with ChatGPT, because when OpenAI released that on the 30th of November between, Melbourne Cup and the Hazer Melbourne Cup and the big fella coming down the chimney, a lot of people kind of missed it. But there's two reasons that I think that particular event is so wild. One is that ChatGPT requires no learning curve. So it's an interface that we all know and love, which is chat. And secondly, it's free. So they've just released a tool that can supercharge people. OpenAI have just released a tool that can supercharge people, and it's free and has no learning curve. Like, if you go back through all the historical events that I talked about, none of them were free and all of them had huge learning curves. So they took a while to, on an increasing way. But, the ability for ChatGPT 4, which has just been released, it can pass a bar exam, it can pass a medical exam. If you don't, if people think that's not going to impact real estate, I think that, they're mad. But it should impact it in ways that are positive, as in, you should be able to find ways to lower your cost base. So I'm about to start a little side hustle again. It's called a Prompt of the Day newsletter for real estate agents. So just one simple prompt of the day. And it could be something as easy as write me a listing description for this property. Now turn this listing description into a video script. Now give me some SEO hashtags for YouTube. And it can do all of that stuff really quick. Whereas, previously you'd turn the camera on, you'd go, oh, welcome to, welcome home or whatever. And that would be the first line. And then you'd go, all right, stop, hang on, back. What am I saying about the kitchen again? Whereas, with ChatGPT, it can sort of have it all done for you. And then, actually last week at Wire, I demonstrated how you can take the text from ChatGPT and put it into a tool where an AI version of you can actually do the video tour. So
Wow.
I mean, like that sort of thing and getting those jobs done really quickly, I think will impact real estate in a positive way for people that actually are curious and get in amongst it and adapt to new ways of working. What I think won't change is the need to be human. So supercharge yourself on this side of things. By all means, use it for time management and to be more productive and get some of that other stuff done. In fact, I've just written an article called How to Build Your Personal Empire by Not Hiring a Single Human. Because ChatGPT, you don't need to worry about the culture, but
Yeah.
I would always say please and thank you to the robot. I mean, you don't have to worry about leadership too much, but always say please and thank you because you just know.
That's true.
But you still need to, I think people will crave human connection, particularly your customers. So what we're about to see, I think, is an explosion of AI sort of driven content. And I think the people that will really set themselves apart are the people that know how to use that, harness that, but still maintain human connections with their customers because, people will crave that even more.
So have you seen through COVID through to now, have you seen changes in the real estate industry, in speaking to all these people that have occurred as a result of COVID and this, or it was going to come anyway? Is there things here to stay, or is it like, okay, now we're not going to do that anymore, like have the soap bottle or a stool in the front door, things like that? Are they come and gone, or there's some things that this industry needed to happen and as a result, we're going to move forward with?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually, and I'm going to answer it as honestly as possible, which might
Okay.
sort of stick a few noses out of joint, but here goes. I think COVID did teach the real estate industry a lot of things because, everyone had to adapt really quickly to a new way of working. And I saw firsthand, there was an explosion of news and connection and everything like that, but I saw everyone really care more than I've ever seen the real estate. I mean, the real estate industry is pretty good actually when you consider all the community projects and things like that people get involved in, all the charity work, you name it. Like I can't even pick another industry that is so giving in that way.
Mm.
And then we saw, people dropping off care baskets and helping and leaders checking in on their teams, particularly property management, because they were like the front line of COVID, I think, more than anyone else. And and then as soon as lockdowns got lifted, like everyone said, yes, I've learned a lot from this. But then when lockdowns got lifted, everyone pretty much went back to the same old, or at least that's what I observed, because the world did go crazy. So, we had COVID doom, through 2020. Followed by COVID boom in 2021, where everyone just went, oh my God, I'm so busy, and to get the deals done and all that sort of thing. I think that probably, it's one of those, the car looks nice on the outside, but it's probably messy on the inside, if you know what I mean,
That's correct.
just for the purposes of getting stuff done. And now I think, we're in a different situation with the market, but really, again, this is just another pivot, right? This is like another, like Mark McLeod says, it's just weather, and now.
I love that when he said that. Yeah, it was a great analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, now we've got to start acting, as though the weather has changed, and the weather has changed. There's no two ways about it. But, again, I just think it's like, I don't know. I think that, the part of the care and all that sort of thing that happened during COVID is maybe just slightly missing again. And all the lessons that we thought we learned, I remember asking some people during the time, is there anything that you're grateful for? Is there anything that you hope continues after COVID? And everyone said, oh yes, this and that. And there were a whole bunch of responses, but then, things kind of go back to normal. And now we're actually in a different kind of period where rental crisis, and I don't see any end to that in sight. People need to be looking after their people even more than they were during COVID, because it's probably going to get tougher.
I couldn't agree more. And as you mentioned, at the forefront of all of that was property managers. more so than salespeople. And, a property manager who might have been in the industry a year or so before COVID and then had to endure that if they survived it, probably felt like they went through 5 or 6 years of being in the property management industry in that condensed period. And a lot of people have since moved on. And I look at the resume going, well, how can you feel burnt out? You've been out for 20 years.
Yep.
But understanding that I sold my business at the time, just as it was happening, and I could see those small changes starting to happen already. But leaders, I believe, and to concur with you, need to be more respectful of their staff, especially those who are looking after the greatest asset of their business, which is the red roll, and not take them for granted. And I know, we want to sort of say we don't want to wrap everyone in fluff and cotton wool and what have you, and everyone's got roles and responsibility to be accountable. That's great. But it doesn't necessarily mean a thank you here and there, or, you know what, we love what you did. That was a tough client or landlord. Well done. Goes a long way, doesn't it?
I think during that lockdown period, we were all a bit slower too. Like we were all a bit more, we noticed stuff around us more, like which you can do when you're not crazy busy. And
Yeah.
so, the things that were nice during COVID were the extra thank yous and the extra care and the extra recognition and, the extra you've got this, that we were seeing and also leaders. Like I remember talking to a couple of them and, you'd see leaders coming from the middle, like the good ones where, like, let's say a tenant was behind in their rent or had lost their job because of COVID or whatever. They would take the call. The leader would take the call and take it away from the property manager. And it was just that, everyone seemed to have that bit of extra time and consideration and things like that. And then when things get busy, it's almost like, oh, I'm just busy. And for that reason, I kind of don't like that word a lot. I still think you, as a leader, no matter how busy you are, you still got to make the time to say please and thank you and, to your people as well as the rest.
Yeah, I would agree. Great advice. On that, just to wrap things up, what is in 1 minute or less the best advice you can give someone coming into the industry now, given what we've seen, what you've shared with us? What is the first thing they should do to start and have a lengthy career?
I think it really depends on who you work for. So I think, there was a bit of advice from Marty Fox last week, which I thought was a really good one, is that, you really, I think, need to, and I think he's right actually, is that you really need to find a good office with, strong systems and processes and some good top performers. And, in real estate, it's really easy to figure out who they are because you can go onto any number of platforms these days and figure that out. And then just really really find someone that you like. It doesn't have to be, I would say, like if I was a female coming into the industry, Marty Fox might not be the best mentor for me because he and I are quite different personalities. So I think you really need to find someone that you really admire, that works the same way that you do. Like I think if I was an agent, I wouldn't mind learning from someone like Melita Bell, for example, because when I met her, she was, a bit of a have a chat and liked to socialize and things like that. Not necessarily but it worked for her in a different way. So I really think you've got to find the experience because, to quote someone famous in the industry, success does leave clues.
Yes.
Plenty of them, but you've got to find them from someone that, that you love and respect and can work for the long hours, and that really resonates with you authentically.
Well said. Fantastic. Samantha, where can people find you if they want to get hold of you?
Oh, eliteagent.com, they can find me. Actually, I'm really easy to find. All the usual places, LinkedIn, Instagram, one of these days.
This networking.
I wouldn't mind being a bit more secret sometime, but yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. You've taught me a lot. I hope everyone gets a lot out of this. You're a wealth of knowledge across both industries and leadership, and keep it up. I know you've got some exciting things happening, which we'll keep quiet in the future. So I wish you well, but thank you so much, Samantha.
Thanks, Vic, and good luck with this podcast.
Thanks so much for listening to the show. I'm truly grateful and hope you got value out of it. If you did, please share it around and tell somebody else and help us bring this amazing information to others. If you know of anyone you think could add value to the show, please feel free to get in touch. I'd love to learn about them. Today's episode is brought to you by Sanel Recruitment. I am the founder and director of Sanel Recruitment. We are your personnel partners for amazing talent in the property, real estate and building sectors. If I can help you in any way, please get in touch at the contact details in the show notes. And remember, we can all learn so much from each other if we just learn to help each other. I'm Nick Rosso. See you next time.